Welcome. I'm Liz Taylor, ocean explorer, naturalist, and entrepreneur.
I'm Sylvia Earle. I'm an oceanographer, National Geographic explorer, founder of Mission Blue, and I'm also an ocean elder. Thank you, Ocean Elders, for sponsoring this program.
Yes, indeed. And this is our show, Dive In, where we host informal and open conversations with the ocean community on topics of wonder and interest. And we're glad to be back and hope that everyone has made some time to get outdoors. You can ask questions by putting them in the Q&A box, and we'll get to as many as we can towards the end of the program. And then throughout the conversation, there'll be some links put up in the chat for further reference. And before we get going, let's remind everyone that the world
Is
blue.
blue. Never forget it.
So in our last couple of episodes, we talked about the sunflower sea stars and the impact their loss has had on the kelp forests. And today we're going to be talking with Dr. Alyssa Frederick about her work with abalone,
Another
perhaps,
key player.
right? As I say, like the most beleaguered and iconic mollusk found
I
all
love
along
that
our
phrase.
Alyssa is the director of the White Abalone Captive Breeding Program at the UC Davis Bodega Marine Laboratory, and she studied as a Fulbright Scholar in New Zealand and received her PhD from UC Irvine. She is a National Geographic Explorer as well,
Yes.
uh, and a Science and Technology Fellow at the National Academy of Sciences. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you. You have a prop that you're going to show while I get
Yeah,
the screen sharing going.
we'll start with the big one.
Take up a whole camera.
I know this is volumetrically larger than your head.
Yes.
This is no, don't wear
Absolutely.
it.
This one has to be at least 30 years old. Could be much older.
I believe it because it's so big. We rarely find any that big anymore.
It takes how many years? 8 or 10 before they really get up and running and start having baby abalones. Takes
Yeah. I mean, we have our animals for white abalone. We can get them reproductive within 3 or 4 years, but that's because we're feeding them every day and pampering them in all different kinds of ways. Um, so yeah, I don't think anything's producing much until they're probably about a decade old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like so many uh, species, they're very slow to reproduce, but we seem to take them at a very accelerated rate.
And they do it on a diet of vegetables.
That's right.
They sure do.
Well, this is a wonderful image, I think, because I mean, how many people have really seen
A
the
face.
face
Yeah.
of an abalone?
Yeah,
And
and you can see it in my office. If I can figure out how to point to it up there
sure.
too. It's like my favorite image because every time we take people into our lab too and we show them an animal, the first thing they say is, "Oh my God, it has a face."
Yeah.
And
Hi.
there it is. Yeah, because we don't think of snails that way.
No, and I've seen the conch in the seagrass meadows, and they have those beautiful blue eyes, and even scallops have just the rows of these brilliant eyes, and the most people just think of them as just I don't know how they envision them, but they don't really believe that they have eyes as we
And
know them and
personality.
personality. Yeah.
Yes, they do. Everyone's unique. Oh, look at that.
So we seem to have quite a number of different kinds of abalone. You're focused primarily on the white abalone, but tell us about some of these other species.
Yeah. So this is kind of the distribution along the in North American West Coast. Um, and we have about 7 species. I say about because there's slight debate on pinto and threaded abalone. People, a lot of people think threaded abalone are a subspecies of pinto abalone. But regardless, so there's 7 species, and the two that have stars next to them, the black and the white, are the two that are endangered.
Mhm.
And white abalone was the first marine invertebrate added to the Endangered Species Act, and
Wow.
black abalone was the second. Um, yeah.
And they are they do they really differentiate a lot, sort of in the depth and the range and the temperature that where they all kind of like cross over?
No, there's a lot of variation. So for black abalone are they look really interesting too compared to white abalone. They're like much smaller, um, and they have like they're like much smoother. They have like different kind of respiratory pores where which are the holes which are really tiny and in a straight like in this line right here. And then where white abalone, this is a white abalone, have more raised respiratory pores. It's not as obvious in this shell as it is in some of our other animals. But so they vary a lot in morphology. And then also where they live. So black abalone live in the intertidal, and then white abalone can live like hundreds of feet down.
Wow.
And they're never found in the intertidal. So, and that's just that those two species. There's a lot of variation between the others as well.
Yeah, it seems on your map here like the pink ones are pretty well limited to quite southern waters.
And same with white. So white abalone go from Point Conception down through halfway through Baja. Um, and that's typically the range, which people always ask, like, okay, well, why? Why are we restoring white abalone in Bodega Bay, which is way up north of the Bay Area, so way outside of that range? Um, our program moved here in 2011, which I have on a later slide. But the program moved here for a few different reasons. Yeah, I can get to those later. This is a picture of Roy Hattori. So I love including him in here. He was the first commercial diver to discover white abalone for Western science.
Wow.
And the species isn't named after him. It's named after a friend of his who submitted that specimen to the museum to be cataloged. Um, and but so he kind of got erased from that story.
Huh.
And his grandkids and kids have done a lot of work to like share his story about like his relationship with abalone. But he was a diver who did a ton of commercial diving and brought this species up for the first time. So I love to just include him there too. And his whole story is this like really rich story um, of when the species was discovered. So
Very interesting. Yeah, the commercial divers, they come across some interesting things. And have
He's
the
not using scuba.
no, he's got like the held heavy gear going on
oh
here.
yeah, the big helmet.
Brass helmet. Yeah, got to be smaller, old school. And and the abalone just in this slide you can just talk about like how many times we've seen sort of abalone necklaces and
Buttons.
buttons and earrings or rings and all kinds of different stuff.
Absolutely.
And
Inlays in guitars. The
yeah.
blue ones are often abalone. Um, and so I like the three main things I usually talk about with abalone. Well, with all abalone is that they have ecological, cultural, and economic importance, and we can kind of like talk about those three areas
Mhm.
of the places where they're um, considered really important. One is the ecological piece, which you kind of talked about a little bit before with the sunflower sea star, but they're just an important grazer in kelp forests
Mhm.
around the world, but in particularly here on our west coast. Um, and then the cultural piece comes up in a couple different ways. One is for those early Japanese and Chinese divers who came over, but going back like tens of thousands of years, abalone have always been a rich cultural piece for Native Americans.
Yeah.
Um, and then more recently, like our recreational divers that go out and did collect until the fishery closed.
Yeah, completely.
And pretty recently, yeah. This is a photo that I took on the bottom left of my friend's recreational diving for abalone. The last day it was open
Right.
in California. And then this economic piece, that used to be really big for commercial fishing, but for the continued economic importance of abalone, this is the Culture Abalone Farm in Goleta.
Oh yeah.
And we work really closely with them. top picture is them hosting a workshop for white abalone to like learn more about how to do spawning better with the people who live and breathe abalone spawning every day. And then the bottom picture, this is where they raise some of the white abalone for us because we don't have the space required to save an entire species at any research facility.
Yeah.
And so we partner with the commercial facilities to help make that happen.
Yeah, we learned a little bit about that with the sunflower stars. There's a bunch of collaborators, uh, both up and down the California coast, and then on up into Oregon, Washington, and BC in
And the
Canada.
picture is probably too small for us to find him, but Andrew, who was on the sunflower thing last week, he's in there somewhere.
He's in there
He was at
somewhere.
that workshop
And I love,
because he used to do a lot of stuff with us for white abalone as well.
yeah, and I love that the one image here that shows that much like the horseshoe crabs we've talked about before, but these guys carry a whole little ecosystem around on their back.
Yes, everyone.
Yeah, this is a rare photo of a wild white abalone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just look at that encrusting. And you've got that big one you were holding up at
So
the
beautiful.
on it.
Yeah. It's like a portable ecosystem.
But man, look
It
at the,
really is.
just seeing just everybody kind of languishing here on this giant heap of shells. It's like the images you see of
It's
the
hard to
buffalo hunters on top of, 10,000
Totally.
skulls, or the
the
conch the
furs.
same way, or the furs. It's just this complete exploitation of a species for
What's the
commercial
lack
gain.
of understanding how important
Yeah,
to maintaining Earth as a habitable planet? They just look like money. It's not about food, although sometimes it's characterized as a vital part of the food economy. The graduate students at Scripps, University of California, San Diego, 50 years ago, I mean, they're always hungry, so they'd go out and feed themselves by scooping up abalone. That's when they were somewhat more abundant than they are today. Not as abundant as they were when those people standing by the heaps and piles, existed. When you see that much life taken out of the ocean, you know it has to make a difference. They're not just there
wild.
as an arbitrary fixture waiting for humans to find a use for them.
Yeah.
They're already useful. They're part of the system. We just have to change the lens on our view. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's happening.
That's a really important image, though, to kind of give people a sense of
Can't go on like that.
no. It's,
No. And there was a major failure of the management side as well, because there was both science and fishing that basically had this idea that there would constantly be more. The deeper they went, there would be more, and those ones would replenish the ones up above without really the ecological backing
yeah,
um, to back that up. And I think like that take graph is really interesting because I was at there was a Japanese cultural event in Monterey where they talked a lot about abalone fishing, and that early dip in the fishing take in the 40s is actually like is a reflection of internment. So there's
oh
like
wow,
sociological data that and the war, but sociological data that is like reflected in these take graphs. um, and then yeah, you can just see, I mean, they fished them till there weren't any left. For white
yeah,
abalone, and thoughts on the next one, it was less than 1% of um, what historically existed was left after commercial fishing went through.
wow, unbelievable.
And that was all legal take. Like that's another part that's like really important is that it's not just like, and I like try to be very careful about this because I think fishermen and fishing industry and commercial aquaculture have a huge part in restoring all of this.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm always very careful about like, yes, that it was they were overfished. And also there were major regulatory mistakes made that allowed that to happen.
Right.
But fishing for wildlife is one of the few enterprises where you don't have to pay for whatever it is that you're selling. You have to get them, but they're free. They don't have an accounting base when they're live in the ocean. It's only when you've captured them and killed them and taken them to market. It's like all of the fishing industry. It's all free goods there for us to extract. How can
Yeah,
you
we're not very good at that.
Yeah, we're not good at math that way.
and overall, the fishing industry, generally speaking, is pretty heavily subsidized, so you get it both ways. The goods that you sell are free. I mean, you do have to go catch them, but you don't have to pay for them.
That's
All
right.
of us pay for their loss.
Absolutely.
You get compensated with subsidies and support from NOAA in our country, but other fisheries agencies in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, or abalone, and also counterparts of different kind of mollusk. Actually, it's in a totally different family in Chile
Hmm.
called locos, occupies the same habitat, but they're carnivores.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but they look similar to
Our little veggie
abalones,
friends. Yeah.
and they're gastropods like abalone.
I'm sure I would also find them adorable.
Yeah.
Everywhere, everywhere, the fishing for them has been applauded and supported
Mm,
until they're almost gone. But
So,
at least they're not all gone. I mean, there is hope.
yeah.
yeah. So you say show here in your in the this image
Yeah.
17,
This is
17 precious live abalone collected at Catalina,
17.
Huh.
It's like, so when you think about a species, it's just wild. Like
right?
that was what was collected right before the species was listed. We've collected more since then. Not all of those have survived, because this withering syndrome disease came through, a new disease, in the
Hmm.
early 2000s, um, and just wiped out what was in land-based facilities. We think of the wild animals that were left. There weren't that many. I mean, there was still only less than 1% left, but we think that those ones did a little bit better because they were in colder water and there is a temperature element to this disease,
Hmm.
which, since it was new, we didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I was alluding to is why the program moved up here. So they did these first spawns. The first one was successful. And then, the vast majority of those animals that were collected and animals that were created passed away from this disease.
Is it
Um,
is it viral or bacteria or does anyone
we
know?
know now it's bacterial,
Okay.
and we have treatments for it. So part of the reason why the program moved here to the Bodega Marine Lab is because we house the CDFW, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Shellfish Health Lab, and so we have like the expert on this disease. Or one of the leading experts on this disease.
Hmm.
And so they developed an antibacterial bath. And when we
Nice.
collect animals from the wild that still have the bacteria, the last one we collected was just a few years ago. We do an antibiotic bath and clear them of the infection, um, which is kind of amazing that we
It is
can do
amazing.
that.
Yeah, no, really. And are these little abaloniettes here on
These
your?
are our tiny babies that my lead technician Nora Frank has on her hand, which I just find really charming. Because when they're about this size, they're about a little less than a year old, and we're moving them generally from their like nursery tanks to their big kid tanks, or sending them off to one of our partners to grow.
All right, I'm going to try to get this little video to play here.
And so we induce our animals to spawn in captivity. The whole goal of the captive breeding program is basically create as many white abalone babies as possible.
Hmm.
So this is a female, expelling eggs.
Wow.
Um, and I'm glad that I cut the audio off of this because the audio of these videos is usually one of us shrieking in
I was
excitement.
going to say, you usually have the technician go, oh my God,
Beautiful.
Or we're like cheering her on,
yeah.
like, you go, girl.
Oh yeah.
But our next spawning attempt is in a little less than not next Monday, but the Monday after, on the 26th. Um, And we like hope and pray that we get gametes. I mean, that's like a huge part of our program is that we don't always have success because we don't know the best ways to spawn white abalone.
Yeah.
This
What-
is a larval animal that's our swimming larvae. We take care of them for a week.
Oh, good.
All right, come on here. Let's get this
So what
one.
do they eat when they're that tiny?
They don't eat when they're larval, and then once they settle, they eat tiny like diatoms and other microalgae.
And do you
So
have to,
this is I love this video because they're like their little foot is like testing the microscope slide, and
yeah,
that's when we know that they're ready to go from swimming to a crawling snail.
it is adorable. They're kind of like, oh, is it safe?
Their
To
first steps.
first step, little baby's first steps. That's
And this
great.
happens on a week after we spawn them. So we check the development every day. And then this is right after they settle.
Come on here.
And they're just this like bumbly little, they're like super top heavy. They don't look like an abalone at all yet. They look like a garden snail almost.
Man, they just kind of bump.
Um, and they just kind of toddle along like a toddler, and that's basically what they are. It's just so cute.
Really adorable.
Oh, that might be the same one. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Now
And then this is what our lab looks like. So we have these systems that are based off of the cultured abalones. So the way that they grow abalone, and this is one of our former technicians feeding red algae out to our kind of medium-sized animals. Most of the animals created in the program, the vast majority, by the time they're an inch long, go out into the ocean. But we've held on to a few of them. We use those for future brood stock and trying to figure out how to make them spawn better.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And are you feeding them mostly red algae, or do they get like a variety
They
of
also get giant kelp.
giant
They
kelp?
don't like bull kelp, which would be really convenient because that's the kind of
Right
kelp
there,
that we
yeah.
have here. And we do have a little bit of macrocystis, but it's hard to the giant kelp, but it's hard to find. So we actually rely really heavily on our commercial partners, so the Monterey Abalone Company and the Cultured Abalone Farm, and they are responsible basically for feeding our animals, especially in the last
Hmm.
5 years or so, because we just haven't had kelp. And that's been a huge challenge to feeding the animals as we'll go, months where we don't see anything that we can feed them up here.
Wow.
Or I should say, we could feed them it. They're just very picky, so they
Yeah.
won't eat it.
Coddled abalone.
Yeah, they're very coddled.
I visited an abalone farm in South Africa where they found it more convenient to use fish meal
Oh no.
made into pellets. And I think if you asked the abalone, they would be horrified knowing that I'm eating fish. I don't like fish, but it was the only thing there to eat. And allegedly, they grow faster on a fish meal diet than they do on what they normally eat. It's like feeding wild fish to chickens and
Yeah.
pigs and fowls.
Yeah.
It's a shortcut, and because everything that you take from the wild is, quotes, free goods, it seems economically advantageous to take wild fish instead of giving these cultivated animals what they really are traditionally used to.
Yeah. Or raising the
And what
algae.
they've evolved to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
I one of the things that I feel really blessed about here is that the farms that we work with, or the farms in California, they don't do practices like that. So they only feed animals kelp and other algae. They cultivate a lot of it too.
Yeah.
Um, and so they're not taking in an unsustainable way because
Yeah.
the kelp grows so fast. So what they take comes back. So I kind of love that. I always tell like when people ask like, "What's one way I can help with abalone?" and I'm like, "Go eat some red abalone. Go buy farmed red abalone because the helping them helps us to feed our white abalone,
Yeah.
and you get to enjoy it."
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Without destroying things from the ecosystem.
well, ironically, when you take from the wild, you take the big ones, the old ones,
Yeah, that's
whether it's
true.
a 30-year-old tuna or
right,
100-year-old orange roughy or even a 10-year-old creature, the animals that we grow eat plants and they grow fast and they don't mind crowding and they're hardy. And there are a handful of mammals, a handful of birds that really fit that category as a source of true source of food. Abalone take a long time to grow. They do eat plants, yoo-hoo. But it's not like chicken that within a year they start producing chickens. And when you showed that picture of the baby abalone, a year old,
I know they're just like tiny.
they're little bitty things. And it takes
Yeah.
time. So it's not a what you would call a what a useful food source. It's a luxury.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's absolutely a luxury.
Will have to be willing to pay the price if they want the joy of chewing on a very
rubbery
rubbery.
snail foot. It is funny.
I've been told that white abalone were the most delicious because they were more tender, and that's why white abalone were overfished in the span of 1 decade. So they went from
Unbelievable.
discovery to disappearance within 10 years.
God, it's just like shocking that they just that insatiable appetite, literally, could have that sort of impact. And but they're also very sensitive, aren't they? So even if, say, like a fish and game warden catches somebody that has a bunch of illicitly taken abalone, they're often damaged and can't be returned to the wild because they're fatally wounded because they'll just bleed out. Is that
They use
they use an iron to get
yeah,
underneath and pry them
pry
out?
them off.
But are
Yeah,
all
usually have to kind of injure them to get them off when they're in with the ocean because they're on this like really rough surface and they can clamp down really, really tight to that surface. And so usually to get the ab iron under, you're going to end up injuring them. In the lab, that's part of why they're all on very smooth surfaces so that when we have to move them, we don't the type of injury that they might sustain, they easily are fine,
right?
like a
So they're
little
not.
scrape. Yeah.
They do all the species sort of have the sort of the hemophilia situation where they can be fatally injured through rough handling.
I've heard that, but I'm not too sure about it. But I think it. I mean, if you severely injure them getting out, there's not. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
if they don't have the ability then to hold on really tight, or just have too big of an injury to take care of, then
yeah. They're kind of doomed.
but they can heal. And part of my colleagues did a study on this because people used to think anytime you cut an abalone out, even a little bit, that they're goners,
Hmm.
which is terrifying when you have the
Yeah,
future of the
yeah.
species.
We were thinking about the species. Yeah,
But they did a study on it, and there were certain types of more grievous injuries that they couldn't bounce back from, but they do have the ability to heal those injuries, which is kind of
oh, that's
amazing.
good. That's a good sign. And and it looks like you've got quite a bump up in how successful the captive breeding has been going.
Yeah. So in 2011, when the program first moved here, we really didn't know how to spawn white abalone. So we are just using methods that kind of worked like maybe once in the past or mostly from red abalone. But they're not ideal for white abalone. So if we took a batch of red abalone and a batch of white abalone and we did the exact same thing for spawning, we will have way more success. I would bet $1,000 that we'd have more success with red abalone than we will with white abalone because the methods just don't work as well. And part of the problem is that the animals that exist to be able to figure that out exist in this lab.
Yeah,
And so we don't have a lot of information from the wild on that. Um, so this is kind of amazing. I mean, when this program started, I think probably most people were willing to bet that the species was gone. It was going to
mhm,
go extinct, right?
yeah,
Um, and instead, my predecessor, the previous director of the program, basically got this from producing a few handfuls of animals every year to producing tens of thousands of animals every year.
incredible.
Um, we had a decline during COVID because we just couldn't do the work. Because it requires us to be in really small spaces together. And
Sure, sure.
but since then, we've come where that line keeps going up again. So
So were you
yeah,
able to keep your like your brood stock and stuff going during COVID? I mean, few people
Yeah,
came.
yeah, we were really, really lucky in that UC Davis kind of recognized the like importance of keeping animals, and also that we just had a team that was just willing to come in
A bubble.
and take care of animals. Yeah, they were just willing to do the things that they needed to do to keep each other and the animals safe. And yeah, both the White Abalone team, but also you see this marine lab, the Bodega Marine Lab has an aquatic resources group, and they took care of the animals a bunch too. And then, so even though we've increased this by several orders of magnitudes,
Mhm.
we still need to get about 10 times more animals produced every year to
Wow.
hit the point where we can say this species can, will eventually be delisted, or
Yeah.
that we'll have outplanted enough of them.
Imagine
And
what
a
a,
huge part of that is being able to use commercial space and facilities, because without that, we couldn't possibly produce that number of animals at a university.
Yeah. Yeah. There has
We
to be.
need,
I mean, it's probably just mostly a financial issue,
yeah,
right? Because you've got, university or grant money or whatever that's trickling in is just not enough to scale. Uh,
especially right now.
yeah, especially right now,
well, that's
um,
that's the
yeah,
problem in nature when you take so many away that when spawning occurs, the rate of growth is not sufficient to keep up with all those mouths out there that naturally are munching on, especially baby abalone.
Yeah. Oh man, like
absolutely.
and
Yeah,
lobsters and lingcods and
well, and otters get a heap of the blame
yeah,
too.
yeah. Otters are always getting blamed.
And I can like very briefly touch on what happens once the animals leave and go out on the boat. But
Hmm.
this part, so I have the permit for the captive abalone, but once they're out on the boat, they're not they're not my responsibility anymore. They've graduated on. So I can tell you a little bit of, these are kind of older pictures of what outplanting devices look like now. We use these really cool oyster cages that have been
Hmm.
repurposed. But basically, the abalone are given some kind of adjustment period in these outplanting devices. Um, that then the divers go out and like very carefully get them out on the reef. They feed them, then they go and check on them, and the device is either automatically open or they go and open them. I think they have to open the ones that we use now, and then the abalone can crawl out onto the rocky reef. And usually, once they're open, they just do. They're like, "Cool,
We're
I'm
out.
home, freedom." Um, and then we don't see them for years because they're so small, and hidden in the rocky reef.
And
Yeah,
do you attempt in some way to tag individual animals so you can find them later? And
yeah, all of the animals get tagged in some way before they go out. We used to tag them with individual like identification, like numbers, every single one. Now that we've outplanted 18,000 animals, or over that now. So, and there were only 2,000 when this program started. That was the
wow.
estimate, was the 2,000 animals. So, um, now they use colored dots so that we can recover the shells later. And they, again, I don't want to speak in too much detail because I don't want to get
Yeah.
any of the details wrong because I don't do
Yeah.
that work. But they collect the shells and they can know like who that, what population that animal was from, where it had been outplanted. Um, and we have genetic tools now where we can, like, if a wild white abalone is found, it can be swabbed and
Hmm.
um, see if it's one of ours that came from our program, or if it has new genetics that suggest it's from the wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many partners.
So many partners. I think that this is like the most important thing to take away, is that this is just a small number. These are just the partners that have animals, except the Monterey Abalone Company, which feeds the animals, but the rest of them all have animals. And that's just a small portion of what makes the program work. Um, and it requires this network of hundreds of people
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
save this species. It's an incredible amount of work. And also, it's a really hopeful story. I mean, like, we get to work with all these amazing people and the species that's coming back from the brink, which is not a thing that I feel like a lot of my colleagues that I work with get to have that kind of hopeful work when studying the ocean, which is, I feel really honored that this is the type of work that I've gotten to do.
Yeah, and just having, I think, more and more we're just seeing that we've got to get more collaboration with groups and just kind of coming together, figuring out how to make the money that is there go further, and how to get little breakthroughs wherever we can,
Absolutely.
kind of keep up these reasons for hope.
So how,
And we do have folks that we have tours at the Marine Lab every Friday, and people can come and see. But what they get to see of white abalone is so small. And when you go to places like Aquarium of the Pacific or the Caprio Marine Aquarium or the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History Sea Center, like those animals, or the California Science Center too, those animals are like big and on display. And like you're up close and personal with them. Aquarium of the Pacific also has a cast of one of the shells in
Hmm.
bronze or something so that people can touch it, because usually you can't touch, like, we don't have access to endangered species materials for people to like really have hands-on experiences with it. um and we could never do that here. Like,
Yeah.
we have a staff of 5 people to take care of all the animals that we have. Like, we could never have that kind of public impact. So yeah, having partners that get involved in different ways, I think, is really important too.
That's really cool. We've been doing a lot of work with Altasea down at the Port of Los Angeles. And last time I was down there, we were going through and they had one of the artists that's associated with the facility had created these sort of massive abalone shells that were hanging from the ceiling.
yeah,
And
I wanted to see that so
they're
bad.
so cool. They're huge, like 20-foot tall abalone shells. Um, but they also have like the kelp seed bank going on there and growing out a lot of the larger kelps. Like I think they are growing like macrocystis. So it might be another location if it can be made more kind of heat tolerant. It might be another location to start trying to work with those guys to get some abalone going in there because they've got lots of warehouse space.
Be amazing. We have so the Bay Foundation, I think, would be the closest one there. They're
Mhm.
at this SCMI, which I'm totally finding out what it stands for. But they're down in the port too, and they just have chillers on their system to keep them nice and cool.
Keep it cold. Yeah. Yeah. It's really a tricky business because how deep do the white abalone naturally go?
They can go down like a couple 100 feet or deeper.
Yeah.
We've done ROV. No, I shouldn't say we. NOAA has done ROV work and has found them on Outer Banks as well. Obviously, our outplanting sites are a little on the shallower end of White Abalone
Oh
Range
yeah.
because divers need to be able to get there and stay down there long enough. Um,
Yeah.
they can't.
but our goal, right, is for there to be so many in a place that when they start spawning themselves in the wild, that those larvae then go and populate other areas.
Yeah.
But
Um,
they have to go where the food is,
Right.
yeah,
and since they consume algae, it has to be within the photic zone where sunlight reaches. So, some creatures go the span from really sunlit shallow waters to deep dark waters that are colder, but abalone have to be where their food is.
yeah, and white abalone are kind of unique in that they will consume drift kelp.
Oh, interesting.
So they can go to places where it's not necessarily growing as well, because as long as there's drift.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, they have to be where there's food. And unfortunately, it's like we all know that because of the warm water events here, there's so few places right now that do have kelp. Um,
Right. And so
that kind of led to the crisis of red abalone in Northern California.
as we're getting, so I think so do the sunflower stars, will they eat abalone as well?
Yes, but they also really eat urchins. And so one of the
Birds, and
main,
thank goodness.
yeah, Yeah, so I mean, they're part of a healthy ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
Abalone existed forever with their predators.
Yeah.
So by restoring the whole thing, then we have a healthy ecosystem for abalone to live in.
That's good because
Yeah,
we were talking with the Sunflower Star team. They said like so many animals when they detect like the presence of a sunflower star, they start to flee and they get out of the
yeah.
area because Godzilla is coming, and so they try to skedaddle and so maybe that's a good thing for the abalone if they can kind of hunker down into
Yeah.
their big foot and sucker on, then the sunflower stars are going to go after the urchins instead.
And I think the most important thing is that without them, there's too many urchins, and abalone can't compete with the urchins in for food.
Yeah, they're
So
kind of
they need to
slow.
eat more. Yeah, they need to eat more continuously, and they also like the urchins will eat the holdfast. The abalone don't eat that part.
Hmm.
So they just have the urchins have completely the overabundance of urchins. I don't want to blame the urchins; it's not their
No,
fault.
no, it's not
But
their fault. Yeah,
the overabundance of them has really destroyed
yeah,
it,
it's taking
their ecosystem.
all the you know, just destroying or just altering the ecosystem too fast for things to adapt. It is.
Part of the problem with recovering sea otters has been because the abalone fishers blame the otters for taking, quotes, their abalone.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
on
a lot of
they've always taken some, and humans are newcomers, really newcomers in these ancient systems. And the loss of abalone, you really cannot blame the otters. When you see that that
A huge
huge
pile.
pile, that,
That was
no,
amazing.
an otter did not do that.
No, no.
they don't commercially take them.
Yeah, and
They
again,
take what they need.
but knowing that like how the big ones especially can sucker on and really get a grip, most otters are going to go for something that's easier to obtain than to just battle back and forth with this great giant shell
Yeah,
stuck to the
it's
rock.
easier to get the little ones.
The little ones, yeah, yeah.
And
So,
also, like abalone have been prey forever, and like people always we collaborate with the sunflower sea star people of those labs. They we our program, not necessarily my lab, but other white abalone partners have a huge grant with TMC, with the sunflower sea stars, because we have to restore all of them. We have to
yeah,
restore the kelp and the abalone and the sea stars as part of it. Um, and so, like, ideally, I have enough white abalone out there that they can be prey. Like, that
yeah,
sounds great. I
yeah,
want to be there.
yeah. Oh, that's good. And are there other species that are kind of on the decline? Like you're saying, the black abalone is also listed. Is anybody working with those guys?
All of the species are in danger. They're just not all endangered. So, like red abalone, there are restoration projects along the coast. Locally, a local tribe here is interested in getting into some red abalone restoration. Um, Black abalone don't face the same kind of threats. So for white abalone, there were so few left of the wild that like males and females were too far apart from one another
Yeah.
that we say that they're bad at long distance relationships. So like their sperm and eggs couldn't meet in the water column. For
Hmm.
black abalone, the bigger threat is habitat degradation.
Ah,
Um, and so there are pockets where black abalone are still doing really well or have come back. Um, and it's more about protecting those places and preventing further habitat degradation because they're in the intertidal. They're subject to much more impact from
oh,
humans.
all kinds of stuff, just harmful algal blooms and things that come off of fields and streets and yeah, just a litany of things, I'm sure.
One of the really cool things that the black abalone folks do is when there are landslides or like impending danger, they will have relocation missions where they go
Cool.
out and collect a bunch of black abalone and then move them to other habitat that's safer, which I think is really cool.
So what are some of the things that like people can do to kind of help support abalone? Are there like volunteer opportunities or um,
Yeah.
what should they be doing?
I like visit them at all of our partners. Sorry, what was that?
You said curb your appetite.
Yeah, please don't eat white abalone.
Yeah, no,
Also,
no,
you
wait,
might go to
yeah,
jail if you do that.
yeah.
Um, but eating red abalone from the farms is helpful. So, like, if you ever are like wanting to have some kind of luxury seafood, because money that goes to them ends up supporting white abalone in some way, either through knowledge or through literally raising our animals in their tanks.
Mhm.
um, so that's a huge part of it. And because what I personally feel like, since what took away white abalone was us eating all of them,
Right.
any kind of positive way that we can interact with them in a food system is great, in my opinion. Um, the other thing is there's a website called findinghal.org, Hal for Haliotis, HAL. So if you're in the area where white abalone naturally live and you spot one, you can report it through there. Especially if you're divers. That's how one of our most recent white abalone was collected, was because it was found in a really high impact area.
Nice.
Um, so that's one way that I, tell people they can get involved, but also visiting them at any of those places where they live. It's like Aquarium of the Pacific, Cabrillo Marine Aquarium.
Support the
Um,
aquariums. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, all of us are working on different grants, and so any like more space that we have in the public mind is really good for the species, because we're in this era of having to figure out different financial ways to
Oh, I
recover
know.
species,
Yeah.
um, put it delicately. So yeah, talk to your friends about white abalone.
Yeah. Yeah. And there were,
Support for areas where you simply leave them alone. You know,
Sorry, what was
let
the first part of that?
let nature thrive instead of
Absolutely.
insisting on taking wildlife commercially. We don't really need that for food. It's a luxury choice, and we can choose to really protect the natural ocean. It gives us so much that we really need to understand. In the air we breathe, the systems that make Earth habitable, and every
Absolutely.
critter counts.
they all do. But it's really kind of fascinating to see, if you could, so many times you see divers going out and they're looking for specific animals. They get really excited to find, you know, a certain kind of a nudibranch, or they want to get that shot of the squid run, or whatever it is, but they really want to get engaged with it, and to think about how you could increase the kind of the appeal of finding the
Oh,
abalone
absolutely.
wild instead of just
People can
taking
make
them.
a better livelihood with a living system than one that's been plucked apart.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how I got interested in abalone, was like I was on my Fulbright and what I had planned to do wasn't really working. And I just was like, what are these giant snails? They're so weird and so wonderful. And I came back to California, and that's how I ended up. Like, I completely shifted what my entire dissertation was supposed to be about. And I remember the first time I was out in the wild, and I didn't grow up here. So, like, I didn't grow up with abalone. The first time I had seen one was in New Zealand. And I came back and I was doing some field work with fish, nothing to do with abalone. And I like peered in a crack, and there was a black abalone, and I lost it. I was like, "Oh my god, there's an abalone!" Like screaming to everyone when I was in the field. Stuck my camera in there so I could take a picture of it. I still have that picture as like the very first time I've ever seen one in the wild, and it was just so cool to see them thriving in these little cracks and crevices. And it was a black abalone too, which is like an endangered animal in the wild. Felt pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
We used to take care of some when I was a volunteer at the original Steinhardt Aquarium. They had some in the holding
Oh
tanks,
yeah.
and they'd put them out on display. But one of my tasks was to prepare a tray of algae and then go hand feed the abalone. And they just line up like little, I don't know, like rabbits. And they'd kind of try to push each other out of the way to get to the choice piece of kelp I was feeding them. And they're just very entertaining animals.
Yeah, when I was in grad school at UC Irvine, and like it's hard to find abalone locally for you to see in the wild. So my advisor and I put a big fish tank at the local state beach, And then we had red abalone in there. We like took care of them, and every weekend we would go once a day and have the kids all feed them.
Oh,
And it was
nice.
just so fun because like, and then you hear all these stories from their grandparents and their parents, and like, I used to fish for abalone, and yeah, that was a really cool experience. And they got to basically have them as like pets. They
Yeah.
were like feeding them and really animated and
It takes a critical number in the wild in order for them to successfully reproduce. As you point out, if they can't find each other, they spawn into the water,
But it's
and you
for
need,
naught.
yeah, everything
yeah.
closely aligned in order for fertilization to take place. And what looks like a superabundance, oh, there's got to be plenty out there for us to take whatever we want. But what looks like an excess is like a safety net with the
Hmm.
disease that comes through.
Yeah.
Um, if there's numbers are small, you might just eliminate all of them. If you've got an abundant population, a disease comes along, some will survive, very likely. I mean, it's not, there's no excess in nature
No,
and, and no waste either. We've got to tune in and be aware
Totally.
how disruptive we have been, thinking that it's okay to go take on a level that can nearly exterminate a species. We're so lucky that you're doing what you're doing, really keeping white abalone from going over the edge, because
hmm
they could.
easily.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably my favorite part about this work is that we get to watch them come back.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And being part of that solution.
Yeah.
yeah, so many of us have to document them
Put on your
animals, this
superhero
species
cap.
disappearing.
Yeah. You've got a couple questions in the queue. Kristen is asking, how can you tell if an abalone is male or female?
Oh, they know.
Ah, I wish I had a good picture of this. Okay, so it's one of my favorite things, and I'll tell you, we have a favorite slogan. I don't think I have the stickers out, but I'll show you what it is in a minute.
They did.
So you take the abalone and you like kind of just pull their foot back, and their gonads just sit here in the shell. And if it's white, it's a male, and if it's green or gray, it's a female. So it's like the color of sperm and eggs.
Oh, nice.
But our favorite slogan in our program is "Gonad or Go Home." Which we say like signing off on every email for spawning. We talk about gonads a lot and sperm and eggs, and we have a really weird job. That's a yeah. We had an abalone conference in New Zealand a couple of years ago, and we were like, I just realized that we were like walking down the street and like very loudly talking about gonads and sperm and eggs, and I was like, our job is so delightfully strange. Um,
Scientists, you know.
yeah.
All right. So Tom is asking, what is the minimum population density needed for successful reproduction in the wild?
I totally wish that I could answer that. And the data exists, and I just don't know it off the top of my head. Um, the I know for our side of things, which is the production of them, that we want to be outplanting about 10,000 animals a year to get to the point where they will be at that density based on what we know now. Um, we're outplanting about, I want to say 3 to 4 thousand animals a year. So we're almost there. We're almost there. And doubling things and tripling them is not as hard as going from zero to tens of thousands.
Yeah, well, I mean, from starting from 17, right? That's crazy.
Well, what
Yeah.
was there 100 years ago would be about right
Yeah,
Yeah.
before humans became, an industrial consumer. That is beyond graduate students at University of California getting lunch.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's when you start taking them by the truckload that it's just a,
absolutely.
Yeah. They just, and to your point, you're taking out sort of the genetic diversity, just the physical biomass, disrupting this, putting this the whole system is out of balance then.
yeah.
And it's just this kind of cascading effect.
Absolutely.
Globally, how many kinds of abalone?
Ooh. I think there's something like 60 species, and some of them are like really small. I had a book on my shelf that had the exact number, but yeah, some of them are really small. The like charismatic mega gastropods, the large abalone, are mostly in the Pacific,
Hmm.
and then also in South Africa, um,
And New
naturally at least.
Zealand.
In New Zealand, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and New Zealand, Australia, and then our our neighbors on the other side of the Pacific, so that Asian coastline there as well.
And I was in Micronesia, which is truly tropical, and discovered to my enormous surprise, it was an abalone for sure, but it was only this big. It was, like 2 inches. And apparently that was as big as it ever
As they,
gets.
Yeah,
huh.
But the next time I encountered a surprise abalone discovery was in Cocos Island. It's 300 miles off the shore of of Ecuador, Costa Rica actually, and in a submarine at about 100 meters underwater,
wild.
there were some small abalone just scooting around for an abalone at high
High
speed.
speed, yeah.
There's a little garden of red algae, and they were just having such a good time. She,
That's so cool.
and they're little, I mean, little tiny abalone, but the water was cold, even though it's in the tropics.
Yeah.
They're coral up here in 20 meters, but you get down to 100 meters. The light is dim, but the water is clear, and there's enough sunlight to allow those red algae to prosper and those aggressive little abalone to have.
They
Fun.
can go really fast. Like it's surprising for a snail.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've seen them
That's
kind
really cool.
of going along. They can be kind of quick and they really need to be.
We have the honor of having the world's largest abalone species, which is
Yeah,
the red abalone, which is the one you showed in the very
Yeah.
beginning as
yeah.
a really good
Pick that thing
specimen.
up again. He's a monster. And like I love the big barnacle on top.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, people are just like, oh, I got a 10-inch abalone or it was a foot long or the foot long between the eyes.
But they don't realize how long it takes to get that big and what a chunk of the ecosystem they're removing
Hmm.
when they have a luxury dinner of abalone,
Yeah.
and how long it
Yeah.
takes, if ever, for that spot to be replaced with
So,
somebody else.
yeah. So I hope that all the guys that used to like to go out and get, catch the or extract the abalone, all the recreational people, they can at least be part of the solution and kind of look forward to helping to restore it. Maybe they
Yeah,
can volunteer as outplant divers or do some other things that are helpful.
Yeah.
Down
And
the
I
line.
mean, with recreational take in California in the last, towards the end of it was so heavily regulated, and people, you could only take like, a few handfuls of animals for the entire year on your
Mhm.
fishing license.
Yeah.
And
what if
I
everybody
mean,
did?
I'd love for people to get back to being able to do that. Um, it's that huge scale of taking so many and exporting all of it. Like it's
Oh
not
yeah.
even feeding
Crazy.
people here. Um, and yeah, that's the part that I hope we never go back to that. But
Right. Yeah.
would it be ideal for me for people to be able to go and experience that again? Because I also think that there's this like part of abalone fishing that is so, it's not about, like, you might go and take one abalone and it feeds your whole family because it's enormous. But there's this part of it where you're out usually camping, you're out in nature, you're out in the ocean, your kids might be on shore. Like there's this whole element. You're all cooking the abalone together by the fire. There's this, and I've gotten to do that once. And there's this whole like community part of it, that we also lost when we lost the recreational fishery. So like what I would love to see is for us to get to the point where there is an ability to sustainably take them recreationally again.
But
Yeah.
Um,
what if you have recreational, abalone watching? I'm serious.
We can get them.
I mean, I personally would prefer
I,
that
I
because when
prefer
you
them
fish for
alive.
them, you have to stay underwater for a long time in swell. I mean, that sounds great.
Yeah, that would
But
I'll
be
do that.
with the
awesome.
Sign
camera,
me up.
the real challenge, and it should be great recreation. Who's going to get the picture?
Of the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or recreational abalone
Ability.
feeding, and you're giving them kelp to put
Giving them
in there.
kelp. Yeah.
Or islands. Who lives on these
Yeah.
ecosystems?
Yeah.
There's so many things other than just
Killing them.
free goods
Yeah. So,
that should attract people to go learn who they are, where they live, what's it like down there, instead of just think go as a predator to take these innocent creatures who really mean us no harm. But
Yeah.
we see them with lemon slices and butter.
breaded.
Yeah.
Well, we are at the top of the hour. So I want to just say thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Alyssa, and thank you, Ocean Elders, and thank you, the whole diving community that keeps showing up and enjoying these conversations with us. We're incredibly grateful to all of you. Water connects us all. Remain curious, spend time in nature, and we're going to be back next month. And until then, remember, take care of the ocean
As if your life depends on it.
because
It does.
it does. It does. We want to see those abalone getting big.
Like that one you have.
Yeah, quick, where is it again? Last
Set goals.
going by.
Pay your respects.
All right, bye for now.